Morning, everybody.
Good
Father
morning.
Marty and Father Peter here. Beautiful day outside. We're happy to be
Yeah.
out here to film.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we are pre-recording.
We're
right?
pre-recording. Yep.
So
So it's actually Monday, but we're pretending it's Wednesday.
yeah, this will show up on the 15th.
Yep.
Because Father Marty is going on retreat,
Right.
and then we're skipping the 22nd because Father Marty's gone.
Yes.
So there will be a little gap in what's that called, a gap in product or service or
Yeah.
something, right? It's
Right.
like there will be a little gap in shows or whatever. So this one will show up on the 15th. You're watching it today, the 15th. And then next week there won't be one for the 22nd, but we'll be back the following week.
Right. So yeah, I'm going on a retreat with the priest group that I'm part of. So we're just doing like a 2-day kind of thing. So that'll be nice.
Yeah.
And the 15th of July, today, for those of you watching it, is the Feast of St. Bonaventure. And he's one of the saints that I really like. You know how you have like your best of saints, your favorite saints?
Yeah.
He's one of mine because I read a lot of the stuff he wrote when I was in seminary. So he was a big philosopher. He and St. Thomas Aquinas were contemporaries.
Poor guys.
But they were the
Yeah.
intellectual, heavy lifters.
Yeah.
And still to this day, they're both doctors of the church, And so Bonaventure had a little bit of a different take on some stuff than Thomas Aquinas did. He never wrote as much stuff as Thomas Aquinas did because Bonaventure was busier with church stuff. So Bonaventure was a Franciscan, and he was head of the Franciscan order for a while. Then he became a cardinal, and then he also became one of the people who helped organize one of the big ecumenical councils in the church. And so he's a very busy guy, and so he wasn't able to write as much as Aquinas, but the stuff he's written is very good, and he takes a little bit, Thomas Aquinas is a very spiritual man. Bonaventure even emphasizes the spiritual more than Thomas Aquinas, and so I really appreciate that about him and his intellectual writings.
Yeah. I didn't know that they were specifically contemporaries, Aquinas, Bonaventure, but it makes me think of like Peter and Paul as well.
Okay.
Like they were very different, but they
Right.
were doing the same mission.
Yeah.
And like Peter was taking care of speaking to the Jews,
Right.
while Paul was going to the Gentiles. So they had their own particular ways that they lived out that same ministry. So I didn't know that they were that closely connected, though.
Right.
That's
And
kinda cool.
they only had really minor disagreements. Like the one disagreement they had is like Bonaventure said that God created the world out of nothing, and Thomas Aquinas says, well, there might have been some sort of like prime matter that God fashioned the world out of.
Yeah.
And Bonaventure's like, no, I think he created out of nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with Bonaventure, so that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I like. Sometimes I think he gets things more right than Aquinas. Don't tell anyone I said that, but
You put it on lines.
Yeah,
Good job.
yeah, that's true.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I like Bonaventure more.
That's cool. No, that's good stuff. We had this past Sunday. We had that
Tailgate.
the drawing tailgate
Yeah.
picnic thing. Did we ever get a number as to how many showed up?
I don't know. I think it was hard to count because
Yeah.
people are kind of spread out, but it was a good turnout.
It wasn't packed. The driveway, the parking lot never filled up or was
Right.
over capacity, and all the cars were spaced from what I saw walking around. So yeah, it looked like a good number of people
It
and
was
everything.
nice. And it was good
Yeah.
because people were able to keep distance from one another, able to wear a mask, but
And
still
honestly,
able to see each other.
Beautiful day too.
It was really nice.
Yeah, like mid-70s.
Right.
There was this one point where it's just getting slightly too hot, and then the clouds kind of moved.
I know, that
and
was
it was
nice.
like, oh, it was perfect timing.
It was nice. It was good to see a lot of you there. It was a good time.
It was fun.
So I enjoyed it, even though it wasn't quite the festival that we normally experience this time of year.
But honestly, it was kind of cool just seeing everybody pull out their lawn chairs.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
set up a
just hang
spot
out.
underneath a tree and just
Right.
listen to some music.
Absolutely.
And not everybody came to like eat or get, or like,
Right.
like specifically for a purpose as much as just to like come out and spend time with, like their family just out in the grass,
Yeah, no, it's
It
very
was
nice.
pretty solid. Yeah.
Well, we've been working our way through the mysteries of the Rosary.
Yes.
And so we did, we're kind of going through the week almost. So we did the Monday mysteries, which are the joyful ones.
Yeah.
The Tuesday, sorrowful. Now we're going to move on to Wednesday, and that's the glorious mysteries of the Rosary. And we thought we'd start off today just by talking about the first two glorious mysteries, which are the resurrection and the ascension. I had mentioned I always like to think about which mystery of the five in a set, which one of them is kind of like the climax. And with the glorious, we start off with the climax right away. So the resurrection, that's the greatest mystery of the glorious mysteries. Obviously, here's the heart of our faith here, resurrection. So I'll let you go first. What's your reflection on resurrection?
Well, because it does take place right after. Like, we went from sorrowful, right?
Right.
And we were really heavy and sorrowful,
going
right?
deep.
And so the first movement you really make is like to the defeat of sorrow,
Right.
The destruction of death right into resurrection, the moving from death into new life. And just like the topic of glorious in general, like I always think of the one song, like, let me always glory in the cross of Christ.
Yep.
And the idea that glory is an action almost, like that we participate in glorifying it, but we also do an action in and of ourselves too. Like, we glory within something amazing that's happened and taken place. So when you talk about like the resurrection being something that you glory in, or something that you like glorify, or you just find uplifting, like, think about how that can change your perspective. Because how many people go to work and like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, you know? And then like you think about like the good things that could come from going to work too, and it's like, okay, I can like kind of face this, right? But like the idea of that God defeating death so that none of us may fall victim to it, like, that's something that can truly change you by glorifying it, right? You participate within it. We do right now, because not to be miserable, we're all actively dying at different paces, right? We're not going to be here forever, but there's something miraculous that God invites us to participate in, to change how we approach that fundamentally.
Right.
But, yeah.
That's good. I'm going to tell a story that some of you maybe have heard before, and I promise I'll keep telling it because it's a story I like. And it's about my pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And so we were able to pray at the place of the tomb where Jesus was buried, but where he rose from the dead. So when I pray the resurrection mystery, I think of the tomb a lot of times. And if you've ever been to the Holy Land, in order to get into the tomb of Jesus, it's inside of another massive church. There's a little church which has the tomb inside of it, inside of a bigger church. And you wait in line for, depends on how many people are there. The line kind of wraps around the tomb. And when you get inside the tomb, you don't have that much time in there. So as I was in line, I was kind of praying for the different prayer intentions I had, the people from my family and all that kind of stuff. And my plan was, I'm going to get into the tomb and I'm going to keep praying for all those people right at the point of the resurrection. So they let you in about maybe 3 or 4 at a time. And so you go in and you kneel down, and you kneel at this slab that they have over the place where Jesus' body would have lain. And so as soon as I knelt down there, I totally forgot about all of my prayer intentions.
Yeah.
And I just prayed the Jesus prayer, which is, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that prayer just took over, and I couldn't think of anything else. And I just was praying that in my head and in my heart for, you're not in there too long. They only let you in there for maybe 15 seconds or something. And so that's the prayer that came to my heart. And I thought, wow, that's like the mystery of the resurrection is of mercy.
Yeah.
That's where the gift of mercy comes from. Jesus, by his death, has triumphed over death and sin.
Yeah.
And it's the power of his resurrection that has mercy on us. So it totally took me by surprise. That's not what my plan had been, to go in there and pray that way.
Yeah.
But that's what came up, the resurrection giving us the mercy of God's grace.
That's awesome.
So I'll continue to tell that story, because for me it was a really powerful moment. And I had my plan for what I was going to pray about, and nope, that's not what happened.
That's something different.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool.
So that's one of my resurrection reflections a lot of time.
It honestly makes me think of like, so my class in our deacon year, we made a trip to was it St. Michael's or St. Paul's Cathedral in Pittsburgh?
Oh, okay.
I think it's St.
It's
Paul's.
Paul, yeah.
Yeah. Because they had the relics of Padre Pio going through.
Oh, okay.
So we got permission from the seminary. It was a school day.
Yeah.
To be absent from like morning mass and classes, so we could make it there in time.
Wow, nice.
So we were there for like an hour ahead of time, maybe an hour and a half ahead of time. We got seats, we went to mass, and then they offered the opportunity to venerate the relics and whatnot, right? So your story makes me think of this, because like Father Matthew Jordan, my classmate, was telling us the difference between going to like Rome and the Holy Land, and when you venerate the relics, there's someone saying, all right, move on, right?
Oh, yeah.
At the end of Mass, they basically just had a couple people making sure no one got too close, and they said, come on up.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like no, everyone just kind of
made their way,
huge mass of people. There was no line.
Mm-hmm.
There's no organization. And I'm standing there not moving. I'm like, I'm going to leave. And after about, I think like 2 classmates joined me, I forget who, and after about 10 minutes, like 2 more came out. They're like, yeah, we weren't moving anywhere. Like no one was like controlling
no one was
the
directed.
flow.
Oh, that's too bad.
There's no pace. It was just like this mad mob.
Yeah,
and it was like, I don't know.
In Rome, in the Holy Land, they've been doing this for hundreds of years, so they got it down, right?
They're like, yes, move along.
Some of it's chaotic still at times, but yeah, they generally have a line that forms, and there's somebody telling you, shh, be quiet, usually.
That was when my classmate, Father Matthew Jordan, was telling us that difference. He's like, yeah, this would never happen.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought, too, there's a connection in terms of the Divine Mercy celebration. So we have Easter Sunday, and then the next weekend's Divine Mercy.
Oh,
the resurrection, then mercy. So I thought about, there's something fitting about that connection that I had that happened to me, too. Yeah, the mercy follows from the resurrection,
That's really cool.
So, because what does Jesus say when after he rises from the dead, he goes to see his apostles, and he doesn't say, why did you betray me? He says, peace be with you. So the resurrected Christ brings his mercy to us. So.
Well, yeah, you just imagine that, like, how afraid, I mean, they were afraid, right? But how afraid you are when, like, Jesus comes back and you're like, oh, man. What's he going to say?
Oh, no.
Like, I know I didn't do a great job at this. Like,
I'm embarrassed.
I know that this is not a good decision I made.
Right.
But, like, do you think about, like, the experience of that mercy, that forgiveness?
Right.
Yeah.
So, a couple things to think about in terms of the resurrection. And then, of course, there's the ascension, which happens after the resurrection.
Which, humorously, I had a friend who never really realized that they're like 2 separate actions.
Oh, okay.
A resurrection and ascension.
Okay.
Right? And presume they were one and the same action in and of itself.
Okay.
Right?
Well, they're kind of tied together. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Well, it's the ascension into heaven.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But didn't Jesus descend first?
Yeah.
So the ascension happened slightly later, right? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But they are tied together close. I actually just said that more of a question before. I was like, right? This is what I always thought.
I remember in scripture class, Father Smiga, one of our teachers, he would always tell us not to try and separate the resurrection and the ascension.
Oh gosh,
that much.
yes, yeah.
Because it is, it's like the fulfillment of the resurrection is the heavenly glory.
That is
right?
correct.
And that's true for all of us too. The point is you go to heaven, you go to a place of perfect peace. It's not like you come back out of your grave and hang out on the fallen earth for a while, but
it is not possible to resurrect without ascending.
Yes.
For Jesus.
And then for us though too, as Catholics, we also believe that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So eventually, we'll be like Jesus, we'll be in heaven, but then God will recreate the earth and we'll have our bodies on this perfect earth. Yes. It's kind of one of those teachings that is kind of strange in the Catholic Church and not a lot of people know about it, but that's what we believe, that eventually we'll be back with our bodies on the earth.
It's why even like the Church approves cremation, right? It's cremation's okay.
Right.
But fundamentally it has to be buried. You can't take the ashes and divide it up. Right.
Out of respect for the body.
Yeah, you can't spread the ashes or anything. And it's fundamentally tied to the belief that like there's a respect for the body, but it's also the fact that like I don't know what the not to be disrespectful, but they're going to use this later, essentially, right? That kind of concept.
Yeah,
where
God will recreate us.
There's a further plan for the body. The body's not done being used, and now I'm going to find something and.
Right. And certainly God could recreate our body even if we are separated materially, but it's still the idea of that you want to keep the remains together because of that promise of a new resurrected body.
It's fundamentally our practice reflecting upon what our belief is, right? Can God put us back together? Yeah, certainly. If you spread the ashes, it's not going to be like, well, Father Peter's missing a leg now, but it really is like our belief reflecting, or our actions reflecting what our belief is. And like they show that as we keep the body buried in an act of almost like preservation, perhaps, right? Where it's like, no, at some point God is going to create that new heaven and a new earth.
So as we have been basically saying with the ascension of Jesus, it's also about our ascension. It's also about our heavenly longing, our desire, our yearning for heaven. And Jesus goes first, of all of us to show us the way and to also intercede for us in heaven. Because you think, every once in a while people say like, oh, wouldn't it be great if Jesus was, here on earth like he was for the apostles, and to some degree you could see that that'd be interesting,
Yeah.
that'd be good, but actually his ascension gives him freedom to be present
Yeah.
in so many other ways. He's present in the Eucharist, he's present in our prayer in a more magnified way.
You got the Holy Spirit. I don't know what else you want.
Yeah. It's by the Holy Spirit
Yeah,
that he's present to us. So
Well,
it's kind of neat.
Yeah, you mentioned that makes me think. One of my a reflection I really like
Mm-hmm.
is the idea that God does not push us; He pulls us.
Right.
Because He never. If you think about like somebody who's pushing you, they're sending you someplace that they aren't. You know, like they're behind you, pushing you, like go,
Right.
move it, right? And they're driving you to a spot, but they fundamentally aren't there.
Right.
And if you believe the idea where it's like God pulls us, I mean, everything that God asks us to face, whether it's a challenge or a joy or a gift or a ministry, it's meant to bring us closer to God.
Right.
So God is challenging us certainly, but He's not asking us to be somewhere that He isn't. Right?
He's inviting us to himself. Yeah.
So you think about ascension, like Jesus going first before all of us.
Mhm.
That's ultimately where He's calling us all to be, is making that same journey into heaven. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting tie-in.
Yeah. So there's a couple thoughts about resurrection and ascension. We'll keep picking up the rest of the glorious mysteries next time we're together.
Yep.
All
All right. Do you have anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Cool. Well, it was a pleasure joining us this morning. We're coffeeless.
Oh yeah, I don't
We're
have my
filming ahead of time, so
Yeah.
yeah, we're done with our coffee, I guess.
So,
All right. Well, thank you for visiting with the Vicars.